I remember where it was. The safety training for each department, what was the total for that and what did that involve? Because there was like one department was 2,200 and one was almost 1,000 and I'm just gonna.
Yeah, so yeah, I know, and Matt can probably speak better to little safety than I can, and his departments are always involved.
So it's divided by each department and then how many employees they have. So if you have more employees, you pay for more. The line department does some extra special training, so they pay a little extra for that. We went out for bids last year and got 3 bids, and we had really good luck with this company that we are with. And we renewed with them. They were the lowest bid last year. I want to say it was 12,000 for the year. Don't quote me exactly, but it was pretty close to that.
And I believe they meet monthly, don't they?
Monthly, yep.
And to go over another topic of safety on the job and that sort of thing.
And it's required.
It is, okay.
Yeah,
And then
a required training that we have to do every year.
what kind of segments do they go over?
Lockout, tag out, bloodborne pathogens, fire extinguisher, everything that's required. And then about
by OSHA.
Yes, there's 8 trainings that are required and then 4 that we pick every year. Topics that hit us a little bit more for the city of New Prague compared to other cities.
So we just essentially prepaid for the year, right?
Yes.
The
Yep.
12,000.
That is
Okay,
correct.
that's what I was just kind of curious if that was an ongoing.
Nope, that's
bill
a
that would
one-time
be line
payment.
item. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. No other questions. for me.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion by Sean, seconded by Maggie. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, the next item on the agenda is the engineer's report. Chris?
And again, I don't really have anything of much substance to go through on this update, so I'll just ask if there are any questions of me. And if not, then I'll hang around for the proposal at the end here.
Hey, Chris, you just want to touch base on the neighborhood meeting coming up? Just
Oh,
a
absolutely.
reminder.
Yep, so we have a neighborhood meeting next week on Wednesday, 6 to 7:30. That will be a meeting on the 2024 street and utility improvement project. It's going to be open house style, come as you want between that time, and we'll just kind of review plans. So no presentation, it's just kind of a more casual meeting for people to talk about the project. So we'll be doing that, like I said, next week, Wednesday. And if everything goes according to plan, we should be bringing our plans to the council meeting in 2 weeks for approval to bid. So we're kind of at that point already for the 2024 project. And I'll provide more information on that, but that'd be for bidding in the month of February. So, yeah, I guess no other questions, then I'll take a seat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, the next item on the agenda, the public is invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. Does anybody want to speak to matters that are not on the agenda that are here? Seeing none, I will move to the next item, which is a public hearing for the Braz liquor license. I will open the public hearing. I guess before I open the public hearing, does anybody want to speak to this from staff?
So Tim outlined a memo in your packet.
Yep.
That just kind of outlines that from our background checks, that everything kind of clears and we would recommend approval.
Okay.
When I know the applicant is in the audience,
Yep.
if the council should have any questions.
Okay. So with that, I'll open the public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to the liquor license proposed for the Broj? How do you say it? Broj? Broj. Nobody wants to speak. So with that, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Any questions of the council? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Braz.
Okay, so it'll be on sale intoxicating liquor license, Sunday liquor, and a 3-2 on sale liquor license.
I'll
No.
second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Rick, seconded by Sean. Any questions? Did you have one, Maggie?
No, sir.
Okay.
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, the next item up is number 9, appointing official city depositories.
Yes, this is where we kind of just move into our standard beginning of the year paperwork. Our depositories are not changing from 2023, and so a draft resolution, Resolution 24010201, has been included. That would list the official depositories as First Bank and Trust, Midwest, Wells Fargo Bank NA, Wells Fargo Advisors, and the 4M Minnesota Municipal Money Market Fund as our official depositories for 2024.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that resolution? Otherwise, I take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Maggie, seconded by Bruce. Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, next item is the 2024 appointments. So we gonna take one each individually?
So the appointments are listed as was held in 2023. Now would be the time
change.
to make any changes
Yeah.
if you desire.
I noticed not on this list, but should be on there is the Joint Powers Group.
So the Joint Powers Group is not on here because it's not specifically a council member that is on that. The Joint Powers Group is a group that the council appoints 3 members to. It just so happens at this time we have 2 council members, but we could have a time in the future where there are no council members on that.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody wanna change any of their boards? Or keep it the same, Sean? I know you mentioned.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Are you? Are
Yeah.
you fine with it? Okay,
Unless someone else wanted it, so.
okay. All right, I would take a motion then to approve as is.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion made by Rick, seconded by Bruce. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, the next item is city council president,
Vice President.
vice president, I mean, sorry.
Yes, according to section 2.06 of the city charter, the city council shall choose from its members a vice president to serve in the mayor's absence. While not specifically stated, the city has done this on an annual basis. Currently, Councilman Ryan is serving as the vice president after being appointed to the position in January of last year. So,
And then we've been going around table, haven't we? And
I
Maggie,
don't know, I don't know
Maggie,
who's up
you're up.
next.
I think so, yes.
I'll nominate Maggie, ma'am.
Okay,
Second.
there's been a nomination, seconded by Bruce. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. So the next item is the appointing of the city attorney.
yes, so, one of the positions that we fill with contract services is city attorney. And, Scott Riggs of Kennedy and Graven has acted as the city's attorney since April of 2003. And for 2024, Mr. Riggs is proposing an hourly rate of $196, which is up 4.26%. For general and civil and prosecution, $231, which is up 4.29%. For litigation, general, city development projects, real estate, cable and telecom matters, and employment matters, and $276, or up 4.15% for reimbursable developer pass-through matters. And so I've attached that full letter with his rates into the packet. And so I guess at this point, I would recommend continuing our relationship with Kenny and Graven. They've been very good to us and have been great to work with. So I'll stand for any questions if you have them.
I'll make a motion to approve the legal services of Kennedy and Graven.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion, second by Sean. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Consulting professional, city engineer and city financial advisor.
Is that Robin?
No.
I apparently.
We don't have anything in the
Did not
packet.
put something in the packet. So, we have used SEH as our engineer for a number of years now, as well as Baker Tilly for our financial advisor. And at this point, we'd recommend continuing that relationship with both parties. Chris Knutson has kind of acted as he's not his title with the company is no longer city engineer, project manager, or
Your project engineer.
senior project engineer is now his official title. So he is generally who we work directly with for SEH, and then Doug Green is kind of our main point of contact with Baker Tilly. So I guess staff would recommend continuing that relationship with both for the coming year.
Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Maggie made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second by Bruce. Any questions, discussion? If we could get that stuff in the next packet or.
Yep, I will, not sure why that got left out.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The New Prague Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief and Officers.
Yes, I included the list I got from Steve. As for the officers for 2024, all of the positions except for chief were elected this year, as the chief is a 2-year position. So I guess at this point, I'd recommend approving the fire department officers for 2024.
Okay, is there a motion in that?
So moved.
Rick made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Bruce made the second. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next item is the designate official newspaper.
Yes, under Minnesota statute 412.831, city councils are required to designate a local newspaper of general circulation as its official newspaper. For 2023, the city had designated the New Prague Times as its official paper, and we recommend doing the same for 2024.
Okay.
I mean, I suppose we could also put stuff in the New York Times if you want, but the New Prague Times meets the standards of what needs to have for an official paper.
All right, I'll make a motion to designate the New Prague Times as the official newspaper. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Maggie seconds it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, now we're down to board and commission attendance records.
Yes, so every May, the city council selects usually new applicants to replace outgoing applicants. And so I figured starting kind of annually, another piece of information just to provide you guys is kind of what the attendance records were previously. That way, if for some reason we have board members who are unable to fulfill their duties, we can certainly let you know and we can consider if a replacement is needed. Right now, this is just FYI information for you. We don't have any recommendations for changes. It's just to start that process of providing that attendance record so you guys are more up to date kind of the happenings of those boards. So.
Okay, do we need to take any action or is that more information?
It's in my part, it's all informational.
Okay.
I certainly stand for questions if you'd like.
No.
But I'm not looking for any action
Okay.
this evening.
I guess I would just like to make a comment. I think some of the, just looking at practices in the past, I don't know that there's, I think of the EDA as kind of my point of reference because I'm on that. But if there are, and I think I've noticed this with the park board too, I don't know what efforts staff does, and I know you do make efforts to try to maybe make roll calls sometimes, but if we know that there are parties that are bringing in paid consultants or people to a meeting, I think it would be nice if staff could make the extra effort polling the members ahead of time to verify there's going to be a quorum. So we don't have people paying money to have people attend a meeting. And so there's actually a cost involved that they're losing money at. But I think it's a good professionalism anyway to try to, if there are certain items on the agenda that are more material, to try to make the extra effort if we can. I know you do sometimes, but I'm not sure what your practice basically is. I know you don't do it all the time, but
So it is kind of on, I'll say, an ad-needed basis. A lot of times we know who's coming. Most people are pretty good about calling us and saying, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make it. I think there was only one meeting maybe this year where maybe two, that we came in not knowing if we were gonna have a quorum or not. Usually if we don't have a quorum, we know ahead of time and we're able to get a hold of people to say, hey, we're not gonna be able to have the meeting. We're either looking to reschedule, or if there was nothing of particular importance on the deadlines, just kind of pushing everything to the next meeting. So we don't have an official policy on tracking that down, though I know the staff members who kind of oversee boards do kind of keep a general feel of whether they're gonna be able to pull a quorum or not.
and then if you make that effort and you can't come up with a quorum, is the decision made at that point in time then to reschedule the meeting, especially if it's a planning and zoning, that's a little more important?
Yep.
Because we have statutory requirements as far as meeting timelines there.
Yeah,
But
so
is there,
usually the staff liaison, so for planning and zoning, that'd be Ken, would work with the board chair to say, hey, did we have anything on the agenda that we need to necessarily get approved? If maybe the only thing on the agenda was approving a code, or looking at a code amendment that we were doing internally, it might not be something that we have to redo. If we know that there's somebody trying to get a variance or a plat approved, we will work pretty hard to try to get that scheduled as soon as possible to keep things moving.
so that in that case, or in those cases, then it's a cancellation of a meeting, not a meeting that didn't take place because of a loss of quorum. You make the decision to cancel a meeting.
Correct. So I guess, yeah, so the meeting was not, the original decision came, we didn't have the meeting because there wasn't a quorum. And then due to lack of stuff of deadline importance, we canceled the meeting, and pushed the agenda item to the next meeting. But the initial kind of thing that kind of kicked it off was the lack of a quorum on that time.
I don't know if there's a value, but I think it might be a value to try to remind people maybe once a year for each meeting that the expectation is that you do make an effort to contact this person, whoever that is.
Yep.
If it's the chairman, or if it's you or Ken, or whoever the contact person is, but there's an actual person that they're being asked to contact, and to remind commission members or committee members that this is what the expectation is. And then as part of the application process, we should probably try to reinforce that maybe, and put that as one of the duties of all these people, is that to try to practice this, if possible, is to notify this person in case you can't attend or something like that.
Yeah, and I do explain the memo. I mean, there's certainly things that come up, and I think our charter does allow for 2 missed meetings throughout the year where, things happen. But yeah, if it's after 2, or if it becomes very problematic, that's where the city council can say, hey, you not attending these meetings is potentially causing a problem for meeting quorums, and so I agree.
What's the practical difficulty, since we have these meetings scheduled out 12 months in advance, of maybe knowing there might be a conflict, or maybe not, just knowing they might not be able to get a quorum in a future meeting, of actually rescheduling it in real time?
Yeah, I mean, so for some reason, we knew that a bunch of people were gonna be gone in July. I think now would be the easiest time to try to reschedule of, hey, like, can we line you up? Because there's nothing that says in our code that the planning commission has to meet on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. In fact, our planning commission many times flexes that around, because the 3rd Wednesday might land in Thanksgiving week or rolling into Christmas. And so the more notice we have moved it around. I know the golf board has moved theirs around. Kurt has worked with them when things have come up that I think just that theirs would have landed between Christmas and New Year's, and it made more sense for them to bump it a week.
So do the committee have the same restrictions as the city council, that we have to give X number of days' notice?
Correct.
And it's the same situation,
yes.
whether it's EDA, utilities, or whatever it is?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm very appreciative of everybody that's on committees and that work, and to try to figure out ways to encourage more people to do it, because I do think there's not necessarily an apathy, but certainly a competition for people's times to be involved in city government. And if we can think about ways that we can encourage more people to get into it. I don't know, I guess my only other comment, since I've been on the city council, it seems we've had more meetings than other years. So I I guess that's just a comment. And I think it's difficult for people maybe to want to run. That's a question I always get asked. How do I elect city council, and how much time do you take on it? Does it take?
I mean, and I know different communities have different time requirements. I mean, I think it's Elko New Market actually meets an hour or so before every single meeting to have like a workshop where they kind of discuss stuff outside of the official approval process. Other cities might meet once a month or once a quarter to have a scheduled workshop meeting where they can talk about stuff that the public knows there'll be no decisions made, but there'll be lots of discussion, that sort of thing. Ours have always kind of been more ad hoc as things come up that we have to discuss, and so yeah, that's always a discussion, ongoing discussion we can have as to do we want to have more organized or do we like kind of the sporadic as stuff comes up, and yeah, and how much time is needed.
Well, I just think if we're gonna meet like we have been weekly, somebody should bring hors d'oeuvres or something.
You can kick it off.
Yeah. I'll start, thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Bruce made a comment that there's some statutory requirements in planning and zoning.
Yep.
I've been on that commission for quite a while. I wasn't aware of that.
So so I think his
Maybe
comment,
some of the other ones aren't.
Correct.
So I think his comment for statutory is referring more to the fact that when we receive a plat application, we have to get that through the process in a certain amount of time. So a lot of times the other boards, I'll think like the park board, we send stuff to the park board, but I don't think there's many stuff that we send to a park board that's statutorily required to be reviewed by a park board, if that makes sense.
And there's a lot of things. I think it's variances too. And
Yeah, you
conditional
typically have a
use.
60-day time frame for when an application comes in to make that, final decision at the council level. We can extend that out, another 60 days without their consent, basically. I don't like to do that.
Right.
But if we haven't given that notice, then usually we're up against the wall. Oh, yeah, we have to meet. We've had that a couple of times, Sean, where
Yeah.
we didn't have a quorum. I think we had one bit last year for bad weather, and then we had to meet like the next week or whatever. So we've been able to figure it out, but it could be a little bit of a headache to try to get everybody back together. But
I think the law allows if you don't take action, then it's by default approval.
correct.
With some of
That's
it.
the risk that you take.
Yep.
And so if we don't have, thank goodness we have Ken who's been on top of that stuff but if you miss it,
Yeah, no, that might
It's
be
an
something
automatic.
good that we discuss at the next planning, because I don't, like I
Yeah,
said,
we-
I don't
so
know if
we-
I was really aware of
So we used
that.
to do annual land use training that the league had available, kind of an online course, and they quit doing that. And I actually talked to the league in the past few months about having them provide that. It was like an online little class you could take, because it provided a lot of that information, like, oh, I didn't think about why we have deadlines and all that. So I'm hoping they can get that back online, but if not, I have a handout. that would
Okay.
help.
Well, I'm just kind of curious, and I know if we use the planning commission here as an example, I know that both myself and Dan are coming usually from the metro area
Yep.
with traffic at trying to make a 6 or 6 meeting. So maybe we should review the times too, because it would be real simple to maybe change it to 7 o'clock or something to give, because I know Dan comes in pretty hot some of those days where he's right at 6 o'clock or 6:30, so. Okay, that's all I want to say. I was just kind of curious on a couple of those questions.
All right. Item C is municipal state aid street engineering services proposal for 2024.
So I'll give you a little quick background on that. So we have Chris Knutson here, and I'll just give a quick overview, and you can probably fill in the gaps, Chris. So SEH has been doing our state aid services for a number of years now, actually starting back in April of '09. They've been very, very conservative on their cost increases from year to year. In fact, for the past 3 years, they are not proposing any increase in the past 3 years. So $6,800 is for the routine work that they're proposing in 2024. One thing we had talked about, and we had talked about it at our last meeting, I believe, a little bit, maybe an additional $1,500 not to exceed for adjustments to the state aid routes for that little segment of First Street within the 2024 CIP area that we don't want to keep in as a state aid road because we don't want to have the width restriction there. So that might be a $1,500 adder to that. But all told, we do have this covered by state aid dollars to actually cover our engineering costs that we pay to SCH annually for this work. And I just put in there a little bit of information about our allotment that we get from our state aid dollars. So about $115,000 a year for maintenance funds, and then another $343,000 for construction funds. And we have a little bit of I think it's a little outdated, a little chart I put in there of our funding and where we plan to use the dollars. And we can borrow ahead, and Chris has talked about that for future projects and those types of situations. But other than that, we have a map of this current state aid route. So, Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but.
Yeah, nothing really much to add to it, I guess. So the services are, what we call our routine services are literally the same thing every year, so we're not really doing much different. So that's why our fee hasn't changed. We have a pretty good hold of what we need to do every year, so. Otherwise, yeah, if there are questions, please let me know.
That comes from the gas tax, right? The state aid?
Correct, yes, yeah. So your state aid funding is, some of it goes to the county, some of it goes to the city, and then obviously MnDOT's getting money too. But the municipal funding is all split among all the cities with 5,000 population or more that are in the system. I think there's been 2 or 3 communities added on an annual basis. Your allotment's gonna be a little bit higher next year compared to this previous year because of the addition of Columbus Avenue North to your turnback system. And then there's some really small changes where you get some additional mileage, might increase your funding as well. But part of your funding is gonna be coming from your amount of mileage, and some is just gonna be based on your population number as well.
I was just kinda curious, cause I know the state legislature had changed the tax. Now it's gonna go up for inflation reasons and whatever else.
Oh, the fuel tax,
The
you mean?
fuel tax, I just wanna know if that's worked into this system here that projects out to 2030 and.
Yeah, so the numbers that, number I provided in my memo, I guess, my proposal was based on information I had from MnDOT in October. We have the fall screening board meeting, and they tell us what the funding's gonna be for the following year. The numbers they gave us, they actually expect it to be slightly higher because there was an adjustment that was made after that meeting. But the numbers that I believe that Ken mentioned in there too should reflect what is expected for next year. Generally, you have seen an increase on an annual basis. There have been a couple of years where you've seen reductions, or I think a couple of years back you had a pretty big increase even. So, yeah, that will change, but with your population growing, it's not likely to go down.
That was in your memo?
Yeah.
The proposal, I had a cover letter on the front that had
Oh, okay, I was looking.
a couple of
okay.
the dollar amounts in there, basically what the expected.
Okay,
Yeah, it looked
for
like
next year.
in 2017 it went down.
well, I see that.
Oh, yeah,
tenth
those
of
are
a
the ones that Ken
percent
provided
and-
there. Yeah, there was 1 year it went down, but the number of counties isn't changing, but their allotment stays the same. And the number of cities that are MSA are increasing, so you're still getting a certain percentage. I wanna say it's 7% or something like that. That number doesn't change, but the number of cities going into the pool does.
Like Elko New Market came on as a state aid city for 24, so they take a bigger
Yep.
chunk of the pie away from us because they weren't there before.
Yeah, that's basically it, yeah.
Interesting.
And I know Chris Cavett did occasionally do like a state aid 101 type of presentation. If there's any benefit to that, please let me know. I think most of you, I'm sure all of you have been through it before, so, but I certainly could provide that information if that'd be helpful.
So, like when we get a grant, we're applying for that grant at 21 and 6th.
Right?
That doesn't count against this, does it?
It does not. So you can use your state aid funding towards the local portion of a project like that, but the state funding is still gonna be separate and not affect your state aid. So your state aid funding is not influenced by
Grants or anything?
other outside funding, yeah. So if you get funding even through a state aid program, it wouldn't affect your state aid coming for maintenance of your streets.
Okay.
Or for your streets particularly.
Okay. So then we have a proposal to approve. Does anybody want to put their name on it?
I'll make a motion to approve the municipal state aid street engineering services proposal for 2024 with SEH.
Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Bruce. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Alright,
Thank you.
thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Yes, you
Good
too.
night, Chris.
Drive safe. All right, the next item on the agenda is the golf course.
Yes, I know during the budget, meeting, the council had approved up to the proposed amount, kind of following, Councilman Ryan's discussion with the golf board. Well, the golf board was not able to meet the next day. And so I asked Kurt to be here to speak to it, because he did mention to me that their ability to get the carts was, the deadline was kind of quickly approaching on us, so, I know you all had kind of questions about 50 versus 60 and that sort of thing, and so I figured Kurt could be here tonight to answer some of those questions, so that way you guys were ready to, make an exact of where we land on, how many golf carts he can order, so.
Well,
Didn't we set an amount though?
You said an amount up to following, Sean having a discussion with the golf
Oh,
board.
okay, thank you.
I gotta look at my notes here too, because I can't.
I've got some notes here too. I don't know how
Well, I
the
think that-
handout
Yeah,
protocol
yeah,
is.
you can,
Yeah,
Part of the general, I guess we were
Thank you.
turning in 50, but you wanted to purchase 60. And because and there was talk of the contract that you had signed, I know that they had kind of held that price for us until a decision was made. We weren't sure if that was coming due at the end of the year or not.
No, as far as the trade-in value, that corresponds with the purchase.
We were thinking of just any general price increase though with the individual cart. We didn't know if that was in the contract, so that was one of the questions.
Yep.
Then the other, one of the other questions was because the golf board, or because the golf course is so weather dependent, a bad spring, a bad, and we're trying to get, and you guys, thankfully because of the pandemic and everything else, golf rounds are up. But since it is weather dependent, we kicked around, maybe we only do 25 this year and 25 next year, 30 and 30 or something, just to make sure that we're not potentially throwing our budget way out of whack
Okay.
by purchasing them all at once.
Yeah, part of it's the trade value and depreciation of the vehicles too. That was the one, I mean, the spend can be whatever you guys are comfortable with. Club car for sure came through with the best numbers, and if you look at the sheet I just handed out, I know you're not super familiar with it. One of the factors are when we have large events, the rental needs. That's an expense in there as well. So you can see the numbers under 60 new cars, 56, and then 50, which is our current fleet right now is 50. And again, you guys can act on how many you have. I just recommend that the trade-in value holds throughout the whole fleet, and you guys had asked for return on investment. This year, we did right around $1 million in cart revenue with 50. So as far as the spend versus the revenue, I think we're in a good place there. But if you look at the only reason I kind of articulated this for you guys is what's the fleet gonna be worth, after 7 years? We've got a great mechanic. I had worked 3 years with Easy Go, did a lot of sales and financing, and we never financed vehicles over 5 years. But we are able to get at least 7 years out of ours with the mechanic that we have. So what I did is I added the trade-in equity, kind of a guesstimate of what they'd be worth after the 7 years. That's I numbered the lines too, because there's a lot of information. It'd be line number 9 there under club car. So yeah, I mean I feel confident that the equity at the end will be an important number. If we do have slow years, the upfront spend is, it's a lot. And if we don't use them, we then don't put hours on them, and then maybe there's an 8th year or a 9th year we can get out of them because of their depreciation and the hours on them. That was another reasoning behind the potential increase of 10 vehicles. It would where the wear and tear would be spread out.
So how many tournaments were big enough that you had to rent carts last year? And then-
We had 8, well, we were charged for 8 deliveries. 2 of them were because we had back-to-back events. So they only charged us 1 delivery, even though we used the cars 2 days in a row. So last year, we rented 170 vehicles for the last year, and it was anywhere from 10 to 30 cars were brought in, carts. I was selling them, so it's cars to me, but carts. If we have an extra 10, we can almost cut that in half, the deliveries, because there's a delivery charge. Plus, it's 55.
So there still will be tournaments that you're gonna have to bring carts in though? for.
Yes, yes.
And that's,
Yep.
let's say it's half, so 4 a year, or,
Yeah, there's about 4 of them that we need 20 plus, but then we wouldn't have the additional $55 per vehicle.
right? And then I guess one of the other questions that I had was how, I know each cart has a number. How do you track that and rotate the round so that the first 20 carts don't get way more hours than the back 20?
Yep, we actually have
I mean, the more carts we get, the more difficult that becomes.
right, the staff does rotate them throughout the day. We rent them from the front back. And then we have a random hour meter that we installed on one of the vehicles, which gives us an idea of how many they have. Plus, we gas them once a week, and we can tell with the amount of usage there. We could, an hour meter, I think with the expertise that Mike Portner, our mechanic, has, that I think is a wasted expense, but if we have one on one of the vehicles, we can tell. But we rotate them as a staff, checking the gas constantly, and they go out. It's not a exact to the minute
Right, that was.
science, but yeah, we rotate them that way.
What, and then one of the other concerns that I had heard was that the storage shed is pretty full because more and more people have their own individual carts and are storing them there. Do we have room for 60?
100%, yeah. We have some equipment up there that does need to be scrapped that hasn't seen the golf course since I've been there, 2011. There's salvageable pieces on there. They just need a chance, but that takes up the entire wall. We've probably got room. Oh boy, I bet up to 15 plus vehicles. We have room for them in there. Right now, the space is being taken up by unused old equipment. Yep.
And I would say, we take up about a quarter of the shop ourselves. The Parks Department does.
Yep.
That will get moved out of there if needed. So, with the addition to our new purchasing the new park shop, we can actually get that stuff into our park building instead of taking up space it is.
We can share the expense with those guys.
I'm not saying that.
No, I'm kidding.
I think those were the questions that I was gonna get at the golf board meeting to bring back to you guys. I don't know if there's any others that you.
Well, I just think, if you guys have a chance just to look at, I have it labeled as line 3. That would be the upfront spend, so, and that's, I believe, what is tentatively being approved, was that for 60 vehicles, but as you go down to lines 11 and 12, just the overall, the equity after 7 years, and I did a little subtraction of that plus the initial spend, so we're not gonna go broke with any of the scenarios. The 60 would give us more equity at the end of it, but, again, that's a number that's to be approved by you guys.
And then would there be a chance to maybe offset that, half, when we get close to that 7-year thing, instead of having all 60 cars come up again, maybe?
Yeah, well, we'd always have the equity with those 60, but we could certainly trade them for 50 or trade them for,
Well, or, maybe 30 and 30, or,
Yeah, that's
So
always available. The one, there's a fairly significant expense we have right now on the vehicles where the seats, I would say out of the 50, 45 or 46 of the seats need to be replaced. And that's a $600 or $700 hit right there. So that doesn't affect the trade value of them if we get rid of them. So just the overall condition is what we look at too. And we're starting to spend more money on the repair of them. That was kind of why they came up. So.
There was another line item for an assistant manager. wouldn't that fall under your contract with your company?
The,
I mean, you're in charge of managing the club.
correct, it's an additional body to run the operation, not just to manage under my contract. It's gotten busier since I
Well, I know the
took
rounds
over.
are
and-
up.
Yeah, so.
But I guess, again, being so weather dependent, and I don't know if you've read the papers, we were in a little bit of a financial pinch.
I understand that, yeah.
And we were going through everything pretty thoroughly, and this was something that was brought up, so, and I don't know if we had the scope of your services contract at that meeting, but, we added a food and beverage person to run that. We've added, now we got an assistant manager. Eventually, where's this contract and your scope of services have to cover some of those costs? It's not just add more management to,
Well, it's a part-time city-paid position.
yeah. And I'm just worried that, and the biggest thing is if the rounds are down, I mean, you can make the justification if rounds are up, which they have been for the last couple of years, so. But if
Oh, I can, yeah.
we wanna make sure that, cause the
Right.
part-time expense has gone up dramatically.
Absolutely, and that was one of the reasons why, we had initially talked about it being a full-time position, but I didn't feel the benefits in any of that was necessary at all, because in the off-season, the tasks just aren't there to, complete, so that's why I wanted to make it a part-time, and that 30,000 can be whatever works the best in the budget too, and if at some level, we feel it's not necessary, it can certainly be removed too, but.
What would be the responsibilities of this individual?
Well, it's mostly a lot of the clerical, because I get pulled away on a daily basis, so it would be, well, I shouldn't say clerical. Scheduling, would be helping with coding invoices to get to City Hall. It would be assisting with deposits and reporting. It would be assisting with the intake pricing and inventory of the merchandise. It would also be a little bit helping with it would be assisting in the administration of the golf events, the multiple player events there too, which right now I do have, excuse me, I do have help with the depositing and reporting right now with a current staff member. Otherwise, everything else I've been attempting to do. I think it's close, but it's not
Because,
as efficient as it should be.
because if I do recall, we did have a list of the responsibilities that fall under your contract. And it seems that some of the things that you just mentioned would be those that fall under your contract and not to a city employee. So I think that's where some of the questions came up is, this is your list of responsibilities under your management contract. Why would they move then to a city-paid employee?
Just because of the traffic out there and the activity. You guys would be incredibly interested in how many times I'm pulled away from my desk at a hospitality business at that golf course to get away from the tasks that are on that. But I do
yeah.
my best.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I guess what I'm trying to understand is that we have this management contract with these certain responsibilities. You want to strip some of those responsibilities and have the city pay for them outside of the contract price.
Correct.
And I think that's what we're trying to wrap ourselves around, is that doesn't seem,
It's more assisting with it than anything, not completely taking over.
okay. Well, these are just some of the questions that
No,
came up,
that's
just
absolutely,
because
absolutely.
it then doesn't fall under your management contract. So I think we have to be very, very careful about that. And maybe relook at the contract to see what do we need to really define the responsibilities, because they're written rather broadly right now.
Okay.
So I guess, yeah, the question,
the question-
the question tonight was on golf carts and kind of where the council ultimately felt comfortable moving forward.
Well, I think we've already approved the purchase.
So the way it was approved was up to this amount,
Up to 60.
up to 60, following Councilman Ryan's discussion with the golf board, which didn't take place. And so, now that the discussion was had, I guess, is the council still comfortable with up to 60 or slightly lower? That way Kurt is able to move forward with that.
Well, again, it goes back to it's so weather dependent. I mean, if
I guess I
I
would
don't know
say,
if, do we need to,
I would guess you could say the whole golf course is, I mean, it could rain for 365 days and we wouldn't need a single employee out there outside of someone to cut the grass because it won't stop raining.
right, and the question is do we need to be prudent just in case something like that does happen this year, that,
But I mean, it could be weather dependent and you could get by with 70 carts as well. So,
Yeah.
like, I'd hate to hamstring us playing the what if game.
I just don't wanna,
Yeah,
I just don't wanna come August and all of a sudden
Yep, yeah. I
you
would,
come to city council and we gotta start finding money somewhere to help bankroll the golf course. Because of whatever.
100%. We don't have the fund numbers yet. We won't officially until the audit's done. Like I said, I'm still conservatively estimating we'll be a little over $600,000 in that fund. And so I mean, I do think the money is certainly there, and it would be, if the city were to decide to finance it over 5 years instead of paying cash for it, it would allow more money to sit in that fund should this year be a bad year. So I guess my recommendation, if Kurt recommends that 60 because he thinks that we can fully utilize 60 and it'll help extend the life and or reduce costs, other expenses, I guess as someone who's not a golf professional, I would personally lean on that recommendation from him.
So are we gonna finance these or are we gonna pay cash for them?
So that is a discussion we kind of discussed last time. We do have a little time to figure out what exactly we want to do there. We could certainly, because our financing doesn't happen usually until September, or not September, that's a little late, spring, I wanted to say. And so we do have a little time to see how the season gets started. And it, I mean, it could start strong, and our maybe my conservative estimate was low and we could have more cash than we thought we had, but how we exactly pay for them, whether cash or finance or a combination of both, is something we don't necessarily have to decide right now.
Okay. I can't remember how much debt we were carrying for some of the equipment purchases, but we've invested a lot of money in the last 10 years. And
yeah, so their current debt load, I think, is paying out over the next 4 years, and I think it's in the 60s right now, and it's kind of slowly dropping over the next 4 years. Last payment being like 48,000 for what the current load is.
Well, I've said this before, and I don't think it's new, but I don't have as much concern about the cart purchases, just the financial condition of the golf course and trying to achieve a goal of eventually breaking even. It's fantastic that it's been managed so well, and we've had very good results over the last few years, but we're still not making money. The year before last, we actually made money, but the last 2 years, and you're projecting to another loss this next year. So the position is probably more of a financial risk than the golf cart purchase, because that's additional overhead that's indefinite, the position. But so I think that's why we're trying to be mindful of the financial condition. So even if your rounds go up and you still lose money, you're just losing money. So it's still, we want to try to manage the profitability and hopefully keep the principal payments lower. That's I advocate for that. So if we do these purchases, to manage those principal payments so the golf course can stand on its own eventually. And so since the city is the backer of the golf course financially, we want to keep promoting that goal of trying to break even and build cash, continue to build cash. But so our financial risk has gone up, even though we've put more rounds in. We're still not making money, and it's not a big loss or anything like that. But that's still the trick, is how to manage this in such a way that we can eventually, hopefully, break even and make money, and then support the future of it, and hopefully generate money for additional improvement. So I support the purchases I did last meeting. And I think as far as the position that we talked about, that's something our city administrator, who's supposed to be overseeing the financial part of the golf course, has got to deal with this year.
Yep, so yeah, right now I'm working with Kurt on what a job description would look like for that, so we got a real good understanding of exactly what that position would entail. And we can further discuss it then at that point.
I'm assuming we can sell laser take some back if for some reason we had 3 bad years and we wanna get rid of 10 of them.
We could we could easily sell them individually. I don't
Yeah.
know that the manufacturer would take them back. They'd put a little lesser value on them than we could sell them
Right.
for, yeah,
I mean, so
absolutely.
there's some out if we wanted to reduce our exposure in the future. But here again, if I get back to the financing and if we can put cash into it, reduce the principal part of it, the payment, so it's a manageable expense. If we think we're gonna get 7 years out of it, that's another, risk mitigator, reducing our risk exposure too, so. So I still stand in support of the purchase.
Okay, so we need a motion to,
A motion of how many? to
of
move
how
forward
many?
with.
Okay. So I look for a motion of how many golf carts are we gonna purchase? I'll make the motion to purchase 60 new carts. Is there a second?
Sorry, are you gonna, it's from the club car section?
Yes, I'm sorry, 60 new club carts. And there's a motion and a second.
Yep.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks, Kurt.
Okay, so next on the agenda is any discussion of items not on the agenda. So I guess that means going around the horn, right? Rick?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I have one thing. I had a couple residents, request, and I know this needs to be looked into, but at Lexington and 10th, or is it Lexington and 7th? That's 7th there, that it's a bear to go north onto Lexington sometimes because of the cars parked there for the houses and stuff. I guess when there's cars parked on both sides of the street for traffic to come off of 7th, I mean, somebody has to move, and if they're stacked, so maybe if we can look at putting maybe no parking. I know that there's a driveway cut in there now, but maybe if we can put no parking back away so we can, on the one side. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about there?
On the north side, 7th Street over by, the empty lots.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
I'll, work with Chief and Kent on that.
Thank you. That's all I had.
My questions were gonna be right over there too with the hay bales situation on those empty lots. Can you give us an update on that? There's a big pile of them. I mean, they look like garbage.
Yeah, so we gave Mr. Wynett approval to put the hay bales down to keep the ground from freezing. In our belief, or what he told us, was that he was gonna have the utilities dug in here very shortly this week. I don't know if we've gotten any update. He actually was just in this morning. I didn't ask for an update on that specifically, but I know he's working actively to get the plat filed. He paid all his development fees. Yeah, he's got the sidewalk in earlier in this year, so I'll follow up with him and make sure we get that in. My biggest concern with him, and I've talked to most of the neighbors over there now, was regarding any of that blowing around. So, I'll just bring that to his attention again to make sure to keep that,
They were worried about mice in the hay bales and everything else.
yeah.
You know, and I get what he was trying to do, but one end is just stacked and looks like he just pushed them off the back of a truck. I mean, the least he could do is clean it up a little bit for him. It would be my hope or my ask on behalf of the residents over there.
Yep, and I can do that to get him to kind of
Tidy it up or make it look a
make it
little
aesthetically look a little better. And we still have the plat we're holding to get back to him, so we have leverage, so.
That's it. Thank you.
All right.
I don't have anything.
Josh?
Nothing.
Ken? Tim? Matt?
Yeah, just a little update on Settlers Park. I know there's been some questions and comments on Facebook. I've received a few calls, and everyone I've talked to has been very pleasant, just kind of curious on what's going on. And I kind of explained to you guys the last council meeting, but I just want to put out there that we have not removed any oak trees. Let me rephrase that. We removed one oak tree because it was intertwined with another oak tree, so we picked the best one out of the two. Other than that, we have not cut anything out of there. that the DNR does not classify as not invasive trees. That's what that area was designed for, is to be brought back to a prairie grass. So we ended up leaving 4 oak trees, 1 elm tree. We cut down 4 basswoods that were completely rotten in the middle, that were not good trees that needed to be removed. And like I said, we removed 1 oak tree that was intertwined with another oak tree. So I just want to put that out there that we have not done any more removals than we were supposed to, that the DNR asked us to do for the grant. And I will say it does kind of look a little rough right now because all the removals, but probably early spring we'll be going in there and removing the stumps that need to be removed, and then tilling up the area and getting it prepped for it to be planted. And
Do you have you don't have, in the grant process, there wasn't like a artist rendering or something that maybe we could get in the paper that would take some of the
so we put it on social
angst
media.
off of the,
Yeah, we don't have a rendering of it. It's just showing the area that will be planted, and that was all handed out to the residents. But no,
Okay.
I don't have a.
I didn't know.
No, we did not do that.
Okay, all right. Cause I know it's gonna take a few years and I've been trying to tell them
We do
that.
have in the grant application, I think, like some photos of what the seed mix and the certain plants look like at maturity level, but yeah, it's gonna look not great, certainly immediately, but yeah, over time, it'll fill in and look really nice, but.
Okay.
And we try to tell the residents that too, but.
If you go on Google Earth and look at what that area looked like 10 years ago, 90% of those trees were not there 10 years ago. They just sprouted out of nowhere.
Okay,
So it will look really nice, but it will take a year or 2.
sure.
I appreciate you giving that summary of that because, you know, I don't get a lot of questions, but I get a lot of questions about Settler Park, you know, for some reason. That did cause a lot of, yeah.
10th Avenue South, and they see it, because I had a resident actually over where I live, so they're not even in that area. And she was just kind of curious on what was going on and just wanted information on it. And after you explain them what's going on, they're like, oh, that totally makes sense. But
And so how many people got letters on that? Because I didn't remember that people got letters, which I
Everybody
appreciate.
property, we had a hand-delivered letter from actually the Boy Scouts, did a volunteer project.
Like within 2 blocks or something, or how?
Directly abutting, we didn't go,
Oh, okay.
you know, like blocks beyond or anything.
Okay.
But then it was generally in the paper and then generally on the website and then on, our social media, letting people know. And we just did an update a week and a half ago.
2 weeks ago, yep.
Roughly, again, reminding people what we're doing, why we're doing it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was walking the golf course and there's one of the water retention ponds and it's got big old trees growing in the middle of the water retention areas. And I'm walking with these people and I'm saying, that's not supposed to be there.
No, exactly.
But people are thinking, oh, that's a nice tree, but it's not supposed to be there.
Not where we wanted it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate all the efforts because, I don't get, like I said, a lot of questions, but I got a lot of questions on that one. People in the area not even living next to, or like you said, abutting it.
Okay, chief?
Just quick informational. We ended the year with 272 calls, up 26% from the year before, with 58% of them being city and 42% being rural. So that's just kind of where we ended the year, 2023.
Is it increased from a certain thing or certain area, type of fire, or?
I would say it's increased across the board.
It
I
sounds
wouldn't-
like a big increase.
Yeah, it's been, the year before, I think, was about a 26% increase as well.
Is that because it was so dry or what?
No, it's more probably, yeah, we had quite a few more car accidents last year. We had more grass fires last year because it was so dry. We had more lift assist last year. I guess it's pretty much across the board other than structure fires. Structure fires have kind of maintained. I guess we got good fire prevention around here, but the rest of the stuff is kind of going up. Fire alarms, CO alarms, things like that.
Sorry about that, Bruce. Were you on
So
pass?
just wanted to give you guys a little update of how we ended the year.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
How are the guys feeling with the increased work? They doing okay?
Good. We did, I do reviews every other year, and that was one of the questions, like, what's your feelings on the increased workload, increased call volume, and they were all fine with it. I don't think I had one of them say, boy, this isn't what I signed up for.
Okay.
The chief's vehicles have helped out immensely because there's a lot of these calls where we don't need everybody. So the three of us or whoever is around can get there and cancel everybody else, a lot of times before they even get to the fire station. So they really like that. I mean, it can go right back to bed is kinda nice.
Yeah.
Not so nice for me and Kurt and Buddy, but nice for the rest. But no, overall, it's been, they've all been good and receptive to it,
Okay, good.
so.
I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
all in favor say aye.